And at the conclusion of this evidence, you'll find that Dietrich Williams, Michael Boatwright, and Trayvon Newsome are guilty of first-degree murder and guilty of armed robbery in this case.
The trial of 3 men for the murder of rapper XXXTentacion is underway. We take a look at the top moments from the trials so far. I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to Law and Crime's Sidebar Podcast. Trayvon Newsome, Dedrick Williams, and Michael Boatwright are all on trial for the murder. A fourth man, Robert Allen, pleaded guilty and is testifying for the prosecution in this case. XXXTentacion, whose legal name is Jahseh Onfrey, had $50,000 in cash on him as he shopped for motorcycles in South Florida on June 18, 2018. A group of men ran to his vehicle, shot him, and stole his money. Now, nearly 5 years later, this trial has begun. Prosecutor Pascal Achille gave a strong opening statement telling the jury they will see surveillance video that clearly shows Michael Boatwright shooting and killing XXXTentacion.
Jahseh is there, unarmed, in the driver's seat, surprised by the 2 gunmen in this case. You'll hear how they start struggling with him, punching him, and that both of the gunmen at one point are trying to get his property from him. They're able to wrestle away from him the satchel that had the $50,000 in cash. And without any provocation, without any type of weapons or anything being used by the victim, you'll hear how Michael Boatwright fires several times, killing the victim at close range. You'll also be able to see the surveillance that shows this.
With 3 men on trial, they have 3 separate defense attorneys, so each attorney gave his own opening statement. Michael Boatwright's attorney went first, and he claimed that Robert Allen, he's the man who pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and is testifying for the state, will lie to the jury when he gets up on the stand.
Robert Allen is the only person that you will hear from that puts Michael Boatwright at Riva Motorsports on June 18th, 2018. And he has a whole host of reasons to lie. In law school, they teach us don't promise something, an opening statement, that you can't deliver on during the trial. Well, let me be very clear. If Robert Allen testifies in this case, he will lie. And we will prove that he is lying. Police ignored an extraordinary amount of evidence that Michael was not the killer, was not involved in this case.
Dedrick Williams' attorney, Mauricio Padilla, was up next, and he claims that law enforcement dropped the ball and did not investigate this case properly. He touches on the fact that Broward County Police had their backs up against the wall because of the Parkland school shooting that happened just 4 months prior to the homicide. He then says how the same detective from the Parkland school shooting was handed XXX's case. He points out that that detective and other investigators cut corners because they wanted to wrap this case up as quickly as possible. Finally, Padilla goes on to say how law enforcement didn't look into the Grammy Award-winning rapper Drake.
Before X died, he said, if anybody kills me, it's Drake. And do you think that for one moment, here today, days after the event, he's killed by 2 masked men, right? He came on social media and said, guys, before he dies, if anybody kills me, it's Drake. Do you think in that time span that they went and they addressed him, they talked to him? No. Do you think sitting here today, years later, any detective has ever asked, Drake or anybody like that? No. They never did that. So you ask yourself, how could that be? If any of us is involved in, God forbid, in a murder, and you say, hey, it's so-and-so, you better believe so-and-so is going to get investigated. But in this case, they didn't do it. They didn't do it because it didn't comport with their version and their narrative. And as law enforcement, I think that they have the obligation to do so.
Finally, Trayvon Newsom's attorney gave his opening statement. He went last, and instead of pointing to evidence that will clear his client, he pointed to evidence and said what it will not show.
My opening statement and all opening statements are supposed to be about what the evidence will show. But in this case, I'm going to tell you what the evidence will not show. The evidence will not show that any firearm was ever recovered that could be matched or linked to Trayvon Newsom. The evidence will not show that anything from a thorough search of his home where he lived with his father and his sister, including digging up his entire backyard because they heard the money was buried there, turned up anything that would link Trayvon Newsom to this terrible crime. The evidence will not show that Trayvon has ever made a statement of admission or any statement that would link him to this terrible crime to any third party or anyone else for that matter. The evidence will show no DNA whatsoever found on the body of Mr. Onfroy or on that car. Although you see a tussle going on, you see they allege he goes around the car and gets actually into it, no DNA whatsoever linked to Trayvon Newsom. No fingerprints linked to Trayvon Newsom. No cell phone evidence places Trayvon Newsom anywhere near that scene of the crime that day.
At the time of the murder, XXX was shopping for those motorcycles with his uncle, his step-uncle actually, Leonard Kerr. Kerr took the stand and explained he was able to run away from the car when the shooters drew their guns on him and XXX. He's on surveillance video running away from the shooting. Kerr explained what he saw and heard minutes later.
Now, at the point that you're calling Cleo, had anything else happened other than you exited the car for your life?
I run and they were down there. The two men that could jump out the car was down there.
So you left Jose in the car and the two gunmen were still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see anything that happened to Jose, between Jose and the gunmen after that?
Okay. Before, when I run up there, up in the bike, the taller guy, as I tell you, the taller guy went round to Jose's side. The shorter one now come around to the door that I was, my door that I opened, and he go inside the car.
You saw that?
I see that because I was looking, when I run up there and saw some the man that was on the phone. I keep looking down there. When I keep looking, I realize that the shorter one come around to my side. The taller one go to Jose's side.
Okay, so
And
it's almost
after
like,
that,
I'm sorry?
And then I heard something like, hi. How much time I don't know, but I heard something like explode.
An explosion?
Yeah.
Let's go back to Robert Allen. He's the man I just told you about who pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and is testifying for the state. On Wednesday, Allen took the stand and claimed that he and the three defendants robbed and killed XXX in the parking lot of the motorcycle dealership. He explained what happened over those 3 short minutes.
Trayvon Newsom do after he grabs the bag?
As he grabbed the bag, shots are fired.
Judge, I'm going to ask him to speak to the microphone.
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright,
And who does he shoot?
Triple X,
Where does he shoot him from? What side of the car?
driver.
So if Triple X is in the driver's seat and Michael Boatwright is in the driver's side, the shots are coming onto Triple X's left side or right side? Which side?
Left side.
Okay. And what happens how many times do you recall that Michael Boatwright shoots Triple X?
Maybe like 2 or 3 times.
What does Triple X do as a result of that?
I see.
What does Michael Boatwright do next?
I need to get back in the car.
What does Trayvon Newsom do?
It comes like slips and fall a little bit, and runs the car.
What does Dietrich Williams do? Now, are all 4 of you back in the Dodge Journey?
Yes.
What does Dietrich Williams do?
He drives off.
So Allen claims that Newsom grabbed the bag of money, Boatwright shot XXX, and Williams was the getaway driver as Allen was sitting in the car. The prosecution went on to show surveillance footage of the murder. So were the gunmen Newsom, Boatwright, and Williams, and will they be convicted for the murder of XXS and Tachione? That is the question here, so stay tuned to Sidebar to find out as we continue to cover this case. And that's it for this edition of Law and Crime's Sidebar podcast. It is produced by Michael Deininger and Sam Goldberg. Bobby Zoki is our director of YouTube. Alyssa Fisher is our booking producer. And Vanessa Bine and Kiara Bronson handle our social media. You can listen to and download Sidebar on Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, you can always watch it on Law and Crime's YouTube channel. I'm Anjanette Levy, and we will see you next time.